Welcome to the Featured Anime Podcast. I'm your host, Jack.
And I'm Rick.
And today we're talking about Spirited Away. This week was your choice, Rick, and I thought it was a pretty good choice. It was a nice rewatch for me.
I agree. It was really, it was my first time watching it. I agree it was a good choice. And one, because I'm tooting my own horn. And two, I heard really good things about it. And I was not disappointed, actually.
Good. I'm glad. So it originally aired in July 2001. It is produced by Toho, and the studio is Studio Ghibli. The genres for it are adventure, supernatural, and drama, and a runtime of just over 2 hours.
Yeah. And I'm usually pretty on point on how long something is going for. I was so lost in the actual story that I didn't notice the time went by. I thought I had a lot more time to go than I actually did. And I'm not mad about it.
Nice. Yeah, it is definitely one of those stories that can be really easy to get lost in because it just sucks you in, and it has a great story. Also has a very, very good message and really sets a tone for the whole show too, or movie, I should say.
There was one or two, I don't know, curiosities, I would say is a good way to put it, that I'm hoping you're able to clear up for me.
Okay.
First and foremost, I didn't know that No Face came from this anime. I've seen people cosplay No Face, and I was told that if you receive gold from No Face, it's a bad thing. Never understood why, and I still kind of don't understand why.
Because it's not real. It's fake. I mean, that's ultimately what it ends up being. Is he's giving you gold for all this work and all this effort and everything you're giving him, and then what it ends up being in the end is just pebbles.
Yeah, it turns into mud and stuff like that. But so does that. Why? It's such a confusing character because people seem to think in the anime, at least, seem to think he was a monster of some kind, and he always treated that girl so nicely.
Yes, he most certainly did.
So, I asked around. So my better half already have seen this, and it's one of her favorites. And she tried to explain it to me in the sense of Sin was the only one to show No Face kindness. So No Face was trying to go out of his way or its way to reciprocate or show. But when No Face started getting gluttonous, I was like, wait a second, No Face is trying to eat her. And she goes, no, that's not quite it. But I didn't see it any other way.
Yeah, no, how No Face is he's a product of his environment. So when no one else was around and it was just her and she was the only one heeding and giving him kindness, that's what he was seeing. But because he was around people who were being very gluttonous in what they wanted, he would adapt to that and mimic that and become a very gluttonous creature himself.
That's a really good way to put it.
It's a matter of him being exposed to very corruptive thoughts, and he is able to take on those thoughts. So when he's around people who don't have those greedy thoughts, those gluttonous type of thoughts, that's why he's very calm. He's very placated. He's trying to be nice. He's trying to return the favor, but ultimately, with everyone else around there, everyone else catering to him, being greedy for the gold that he was giving them, he took on that himself.
That is a crazy way. No, it's a good way, but it just hit me that No Face could be named No Face, not because he wears a mask and doesn't show his face, but because he genuinely does not have a face and he just mimics his surroundings.
Yep.
Like you were saying, like people were gluttonous, so he became a bottomless pit, a glutton for everything around him. And when Sin was there and simply treating him like a person, treating him like a good creature, he became a good creature. That's crazy.
Exactly. Which is why at the very end, when he meets Zenaba, who is another witch in the movie, he doesn't have that same mentality, doesn't have that same effect that he had when he was with Yubaba in that bathhouse that they were all at for the spirits. Because there, while he was with Zenaba, she's not being gluttonous. She's doing just her normal work, being kind, being there, helping out our main protagonist, Chihiro.
Yeah, I keep calling Chihiro Sin because we'll get into that.
Well, I mean, in all honesty, yeah, you could call her Sin because that's what Yubaba actually gives her as a name when she is contracted into work, because at the very beginning, Chihiro is told, you either work or you're turned into an animal. So one of the two is going to happen, and you have to force someone to give you a job there so that way you're made valuable.
And the whole overarching story of Chihiro, I thought was really awesome. In the very beginning, so you basically start the story off with the two parents and Chihiro moving from one house to the next house, and they get lost in the woods, I guess, and they pass a shrine, and they're like, oh yeah, this is the shrine to so-and-so, and very much a Studio Ghibli theme from what I'm finding out. You have the normal world progressing as it does, and then you have the spiritual world progressing behind a veil, which apparently you're able to easily get to and from if you meet the criteria. And
you would think, yeah, but
I just thought it was cool.
It is actually very cool. And one of the interesting things, and I don't know if you realized this, is if you remember when they're actually getting ready to pass into the domain for the spirit world, so to speak, her Chihiro, or Sen's father, actually says, oh, this is actually fairly new, and looks at the surrounding and walks through this long hallway, and it's not aged. The road they were on was actually not very aged, but yet when they leave, the car is covered. The path that was full, that had stones on it, is completely covered,
overgrown and stuff. Yeah,
the whole entrance is completely overgrown too. The inside of the car is completely dusty, which brings to question how much time actually passed while they were there. Because in hindsight, when you're looking at it, when you're looking at the movie, a lot of time doesn't pass. It's maybe a week at most.
It could be that time passes differently, or it could be that time passes the exact same from both sides of the fence. You know what I mean? Like maybe that is a week's worth of dust, a week's worth of overgrowth. Well, no, overgrowth doesn't take that little time to cover that path.
Like complete overgrowth for that, including the wall. That's not a week. So it's
fair.
It's a different amount of time passes in the spiritual world comparatively to the real world. And that's the only thing that I can think of that really makes sense, because they never specify a time frame. Also, one of the things, and a very overarching point for this movie is greed, like in how it affects and how different people are. And like her parents, Chihiro's parents, when they get there, her father and mother just see some food there and they sit down, they start gorging their food. They just start eating it. They're not worried about anyone being there or anything like that. The father says, I got cards and cash, I'm not worried about it. And they just start eating.
So, yeah, no, I know what you're talking about. When they go through the tunnel at first, like, so they're driving their car, they reach a kind of roadblock that blocks the vehicle from going any further. When you were talking about it, I thought you were going to touch on the fact that when they passed through a tunnel, it was like there's a light at the end of the tunnel when people die, and that's how they passed over. And when you didn't say that, I thought maybe I thought that individually, where it was just my own reasoning how they were able to get to and from the spiritual world. What I thought was really interesting was when they first arrive, there's a carnival that's completely empty.
Well, it gives the appearance of a carnival, and he does say that there were a bunch of like theme parks and carnivals created that just went completely bust when the economy tanked for them. But
yeah,
all that's there. It's not rides or games or anything like that. It's food shops.
Huh. Now that you mention it, yeah, I for some reason didn't notice there was no rides. But yeah, no, you were right. The food was fresh-ish, and when they started eating, Chihiro was like, "Hey, what's going on? You're not going to pay?" And the dad does say, "Yeah, we'll pay when we're done. Like, I've got cards, I've got cash. We can afford this." And I thought that was a little bit weird. I thought they were going a little too aggressively. Her mom and dad were going a little too aggressively on the food. And I mentioned that to my girl, and she goes, "Just keep watching. It makes sense." I'm like, okay. So Chihiro's running around doing other stuff. By the time she makes it back to her parents, they've turned into pigs because they were gluttonous.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not because they turned into pigs because of the food they were eating. Yubaba turns them into pigs because they were being gluttonous. And actually, Miyazaki even said that was a symbolism of greed and gluttony, and how humans or people in general can be very gluttonous and greedy individuals and not care about anything. And honestly, how this show is, or how this movie is, it is a very strong form of how people are, how they disregard others, and gluttony or being greedy. Like No Face being the product of his environment while he's in there. He is very gluttonous and greedy while he's in there. But when he's not there, when he's put into a better environment, put into a more positive environment, that greed, that gluttonous side is gone because he's not there to feed off those negative emotions. And Sen, or Chihiro, doesn't have those type of emotions. She doesn't want to be greedy. She doesn't care about what she's getting. She just tries and tries hard.
I did think that was kind of cool. I did think that even though... Dear Lord. So I apologize. I just was shown a picture of the funniest part in the entire movie. If you haven't watched the movie, the image of Chihiro before she gets a job is going downstairs. And then she slips and ends up running downstairs with hands in the air, looking like a crab. Oh, geez. It was by far the most humorous portion of the entire movie, because the visual image of her running downstairs, hands in the air, claw-like hands, if you will. I don't know why. It struck me as way funnier than it should have been. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I do, yeah. And that is honestly one of the funniest parts of it. But I'd have to say it's also pretty funny when they meet who they thought was rather the stink spirit.
That I thought was, I didn't think that was funny so much as it was educational.
It was educational after the fact. But when they're first greeted and they're walking through the muck and grime and trying to stop them from coming in, I thought it was funny. But once they actually get there, and this is where, again, another story, another lesson from the movie is you got to take care of your environment. You got to take care of the world that you're in, because that stink spirit really wasn't a stink spirit. It was a river spirit. And he was just completely dirty and gunky and had a bunch of waste and trash and everything just mixed in him. And he had gone to that bathhouse to try and cleanse himself so that way he can be the best he can and to rejuvenate himself, to clean himself of all the impurities, of all the trash and everything that's been dumped into him.
The river spirit was trying to cleanse itself, clean the river, essentially.
Yep.
And I felt so bad for Chihiro, or at this point when she's been renamed Sin. I felt so bad because when you look at her, she's low man on the totem, and she was told, "Hey, this stink spirit is horrible, but you're gonna have to take care of her. Nobody else is." And that's when, by either dumb luck or by, I don't know, plot device, I guess would be the best point to put it, the best water comes in to clean out the stink spirit, which everyone despises. And when in the middle of kind of cleaning the spirit out, this stink spirit, she's like, "Hey, there's a bike here. What's going on?" And then that's when...
Well, they don't even know that it's a bike at first. They thought it was a thorn. And that's when Yubaba realizes what the spirit really is and gets everyone on board, and they help cleanse it, which is wonderful. And then obviously this is where they find a bunch of gold that had been soaked up into him as well. Gets leached out, and Yubaba, being greedy that she is, says, "All that gold is mine."
And that's when No Face sees that gold is valuable. That
exactly.
makes sense.
Which is, this movie is a very, very heartfelt, touching story. It has a message that you can follow all the way through. And it's not just the points that we're hitting. Like, overall, this movie has some great imagery to it too.
Well, not just the imagery, but the music that goes along with it. I realize we haven't talked much about music, but that's mainly because there hasn't been really anything to talk about in other series recently, at least.
Yeah.
But the scores that went along with this were fitting. It added to the ambience. It created, well, one, suspense, which was kind of cool in certain areas, and two, I don't know. Maybe as I get older, the music affects me differently, but the composers, dear Lord, they have a gift from God, because you felt joy and sympathy in the exact right moments because of the music.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just a Studio Ghibli thing, but I'm personally, I think we should review some more movies from them. But I don't know, are there more movies from Studio Ghibli?
No, there's a lot of movies. There are a lot of movies. Yeah, there's quite a few out there. Aside from Howl's Moving Castle, My Neighbor Totoro, you have Castle in the Sky, Grave of the Fireflies, Ponyo.
So it sounds like we've got a lot to.
Oh yeah, no, there's a lot of movies out there. A lot of movies out there. All of them great. All of them good in their own right.
Okay.
So definitely, I mean, like, we will watch them eventually. We'll work our way through it eventually.
Eventually.
But
okay.
But yeah, no, I honestly, I do agree with you. The music was right on. It was spot on for the movie. And it really helped bring those feelings or thoughts to mind when they needed to be brought up. And one interesting thing about this movie is when Chihiro is given the name Sen, she almost instantly forgets her name, Chihiro, okay? She almost completely forgets her name. And when she meets again Haku, who had forgotten his name, just like everyone else there doesn't remember their name.
Yeah, that was weird.
Your name has power, and it is your identity. So if you let someone take your identity away from you, you don't have that power over yourself anymore, or over your identity. And
you become
Chihiro,
no more than a tool.
Exactly. You just basically become a tool. And when she continued to remember her name, that's when she was no longer a tool. That's when she was able to maintain her identity, maintain the person that she really was. She wasn't a product of her environment. She maintained that core identity.
Do you think that, so do you remember, well, obviously you probably do, you've got a great memory. Do you remember when, when No Face was being gluttonous, and after he eats the frog, he hands a bunch of gold and says, "Wake everybody up." Chihiro, or Sin, at this moment in time, was the only one not woken up. Do you think the reason that she wasn't woken up is because she remembered her name completely?
I think she wasn't woken up because no one thought of her to wake her up. So it was like someone, because when Lynn, one of the other characters, was coming up, she was coming up to say, "Hey, I was coming to wake you up. There's this guy giving out a whole bunch of gold," and Sen, she couldn't care less. She didn't care about the gold. It was not important to her. What was important to her was what she did see, what she did find, or what was happening, which was Haku. Haku was very injured, very, very injured, and she was trying to get to him, and that's what she was prioritizing. She wasn't prioritizing money or gold or wealth or anything else. She was prioritizing the well-being of her friend, of someone that she relies on, and that's what was important to her.
That makes sense. So I have a question. What do you think the baby represented? Because I don't really see many important characters in here lack a meaning.
Right. Honestly, if I had to guess what the baby symbolized, it was symbolizing the childish behaviors that we all exhibit, and how greed is inherently a very childish thing. That at first, how the baby is the baby is very scared, very, very angry, easily angered, and cries, and very destructive. And the reason for this is because he was told that going outside can make him sick. Well, when he meets Sen tells him, well, you can get sick being inside too, and you just can't stay inside, and you can't force me to do this. You have to let me go. I thank you for what you did, but you have to let me go. But the baby doesn't care. It wants what it wants, and it's demanding that Sen play now, despite the urgency of Sen, basically creating a roadblock to try and impede her from being able to reach a person that she really needs, or needs to reach, rather.
Yeah. Well, that's just interesting. Now,
at least that's my viewpoint on it.
When I first, and I mean, it makes sense. I just thought it was the ignorance of children. If you overprotect children, they become self-centered and things like that. That's
a great way to look at it, actually. I think that is a very good way of looking at it.
I don't know. I mean, but the thing in the important part of that whole sequences of scenes, in my opinion, was when Sin finally gets to Haku. He's in dragon form. This is after she already tried to help him, and there was this paper mache person that grew up and gave a vision of Baba. And
well, it's not a vision of Yubaba. It's not even Yubaba. It's Yubaba's twin, remember?
Yeah. No, I do get that, but I'm just remembering when I first came across that, I was thinking, that's crazy. No, for anybody who has never seen this, Yubaba is not an attractive elderly woman.
No, not at all. Not even close. And but then again, everything in there, with the exception of Sen, everyone in there is a spirit of some form. They serve some purpose or some meaning, and Yubaba and Zenaba are both sorcerers or sorceresses.
Yeah. And in that sequence, you find out that, one, they both have very similar abilities or powers, and two, they both, for some reason, well, there's not some reason, they both placed a curse on Haku. And
Zenaba didn't place the curse on Haku. That was Yubaba, and Yubaba put that curse or worm inside him, so that way Haku would do her bidding. Zenaba didn't curse him. He had taken a seal that was hers, and that had a protective charm on it, which cursed him then. And that's what was causing the problem.
Okay. And that curse can only be broken by love, which Sin shows Haku.
I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the only thing I can think of.
Well, I mean, like, they don't go over the details or power behind how the curse is broken, but they do symbolize that it is something that, one, it was placed upon him. Two, if you're going to blindly follow someone, you're going to end up doing things you shouldn't be doing, period. And that, you're better off actually thoroughly thinking everything through and just really trying to make sure that you're making the right choice.
I would say thinking for yourself. Now, I don't know why Haku was able to have such free will, whereas everybody else didn't.
Well, everyone else has free will. They're just, in a different position. They're not an apprentice like Haku was. Haku was the apprentice of Yubaba, which gave him more freedom, but that's about it. It's not a matter of free will. And everyone there has a contract that's signed. And so that's why they all still work there, and they work there in the position they're told to work in.
Okay. I can respect that.
I mean, honestly, we could go on for hours about the meaning, the process of everything in this movie, because it is so well done. It is a very, very good movie, and it is something that I would honestly highly recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't recommend it as high as a perfect, but it's definitely on the list. Like, the animation, spot on. I didn't find any flaws. I feel that the animation it was lackluster in a few areas, but I feel that was on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah. So on a scale of up to 10, how would you rate this?
9, a solid 9. It was just, it was so much to unpack that I don't think watching it one time would give you a whole grasp of what's going on. There's so many characters we didn't even talk about that would have, they deserve their own little time.
Yep.
But
one
of the things. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I honestly completely agree with you on that. There's every character, and every character that is truly brought in some capacity other than a passing glance serves a purpose, I think.
One of the things I really liked, and I don't know if it's a Studio Ghibli staple or a heavily reoccurring theme across all the movies, the soot demons or soot ghosts. I don't know what you call them.
Yeah.
They were they were in my Neighborhood Totoro, and they were in this. Granted, doing different things, but
same purpose. But unfortunately, this is the only ones where they're actually there. Between this one and My Neighbor Totoro. They're not in Howl's Moving Castle. They're not in Kiki's Delivery Service or in Nausicaa. They're unfortunately they're kind of like a one-off, and the same thing with No Face. No Face really that I can remember is in any other movie other than this one.
That seems a shame because it would be a good plot device, I think.
Well, I'm glad that they didn't, mainly because if they kept reusing the same characters all the time, it would ruin the meaning, or you would have to, again, try and tie it in to the same way that it was before.
Wouldn't it be kind of cool if there was a core group of characters, let's call them, that represent a certain thing all throughout the movies? Like, for instance, Totoro. If you look at how that character was drawn, the baby turns into a miniature Totoro.
Baby turns into a miniature rat.
Oh. Really? I thought it was a Totoro.
No. Turned into a miniature rat.
Oh, jeez. Oh, man. Well, I think that the end part was kind of cool, too. of the whole movie. I realize I'm going back, but the last test thing.
Well, the last test thing was there's like no special energy or anything like that on why she was able to say that her parents weren't there. She just knew. And again, it was from what I remember reading is Miyazaki even had written that it's not like she had any special energy or powers or anything like that. When she got there, she just knew her parents weren't there. It was intuition.
Well, okay. Since you have a little bit more information, a lot more information than I do, was there any significance in the hairband that her friends made?
The magic hairband? Yeah. They had talked about it in their. Actually, it's meant to help prevent you from being cursed. Meant to protect you, if I remember correctly.
That makes a lot of sense. Wow. Well, I mean, sorry, I kind of took it over. What's your score?
My score, I was gonna give it a 9.
Oh, okay, cool. You matched on this one. Any differing reasons than myself, or?
Aside from everything on there, the only other thing that I wish they had done a little bit differently is I felt like they should have explained what there was in terms of a time difference for when Sen left versus going there.
I mean, I don't know. Like I don't know.
It's not nothing against the show. It's just it's really weird that it made it look like a ton of time has gone by. And here's the thing. I mean, like, I understand, like, yes, greed gets the best of us and we tend to lose our sense of time and ourselves and the world will continue on without us, whether we're there or not. However, when they are first going there, they're moving there and the movers are going there to drop off the house. So a lot of time has gone by. So that technically means they are now homeless because I doubt that their house is still there waiting for them. And I'm pretty sure they all would have been declared missing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you're not wrong.
So, that's the only thing. That's the only thing that keeps me from giving a 10 is like when they're coming back, obviously a lot of time has gone by. So, I just would have loved to have had some kind of explanation or reason or them saying, keep in mind, by the way, 20 years have gone by in the outside world. You're technically dead or something, something to just kind of.
I feel like that could have been a part 2. That could have turned into something more. I'm glad that they left it ambiguous because as it stands, I'm not really wanting more information on their regular lives.
Well, I'm not wanting more information on their regular lives. I just want to know how much time has passed. Like how much time truly has passed. Because when they leave, a lot of time has passed.
I would be comfortable saying maybe a year because of the dust, because of the overgrowth. Now, the only I realize I'm bringing logic and real life into this. My only frustration is the car started with no issues. So it couldn't have been there long enough that the battery lost its charge.
Right.
So,
then again, he was driving an Audi and he was saying it had 4x4 with no issues and they were going up a pretty rocky path. So let's take logic and just kind of throw that out.
Fair enough. Oh, goodness.
All right.
Well, next week is yours.
Next week is mine. And we're going to go with another movie because why not? It seems like the trend to do right now.
Hey, it works for me.
All right. Next week is going to be Origin, Spirits of the Past.
Okay, what's this about?
It's a action, drama, fantasy, romance, sci-fi. It runs for about an hour and a half, came out in 2006. And what it's about that is a great question. We will find out when we watch it.
We'll find out next time on
Blammo. Yeah. Well, that's all the time that we have for today. Hope you enjoyed this week's choice. Feel free to join us in our Discord. We tend to have some pretty good discussions going on in there. We would love to have you all join in with us. Don't forget, you could also follow us on Twitter, Facebook. You can email us. All that contact information is in the show notes. If you happen to be listening to this on YouTube, feel free to leave a comment. Be happy to respond to you on there. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen. Until next time, I'm Jack.
And I'm Rick. And we'll see you next time.